Bart and Cherry Star are here. And I told the server, I said, I'm taking care of their bill. Just let me take care of it. And it was really busy. It was a Friday afternoon or a Friday lunchtime. And then it got really busy. And then all of a sudden, server turns around because somebody's here to see you. And I turn around and it's Bart Star standing there.
Welcome to Tales from the Tundra, a weekly show that captures one team's history told through the eyes of the fan. My name is Ben, and on today's episode, we are sitting down and talking with Eric. Eric is a diehard Packers fan who bleeds green and gold. Born and raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Eric's passion for the Packers has been ingrained in him since day one. This is Tales from the Tundra, Episode 2 with Eric. Enjoy. For so many Packer fans, including myself, the Packers have been competitive their whole lives. However, prior to the 1990s, it wasn't like this at all. So what was it like for fans who grew up in the 70s or 80s to have their fandom molded in those dark times?
It was tough like that, especially in the late 70s and early 80s. Even when Lynn Dickey arrived in 76, because Lynn Dickey, a little bit known as my favorite player of all time.
Really?
Bart Starr is the greatest of all time. I will say that through and through again. And people argue, what about Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, I said, well, Bart Starr won 5 championships. And until you can produce a quarterback who did that, take a step back and check yourself. And well, it was back then. Again, it's all relative in time and entry, right? But think about it. Bart Starr won it when there was no, hey, you can't touch the quarterback, and there was no any of this other stuff. So there's always the other side of that coin.
Yeah.
And Bart Starr was a true gentleman. I've gotten to know him a couple times. Incredible guy. But Lynn Dickey, through and through, was my favorite player because the hard part about Lynn Dickey, and everybody said he threw a lot of interceptions. He did because he couldn't move. He had a double hip replacement. And but when he could throw the ball, I mean, he had that same accuracy, if not better, than Aaron Rodgers at times. It was just insane to watch him throw the ball.
It's interesting that people often leave him out on a list of great quarterbacks the Packers have had when Rodgers, I think it was his 2011 season when he really had one of the best years of his career. And that was the time he beat Dickey's. I mean, you think about it from 82 or 83, I don't remember exactly what year, all the way to 2011. And that was in an era where quarterbacks weren't protected, like you said. Wide receivers weren't protected.
Nope.
It was, you could play defense a lot more then. So the stat lines he could produce is freakish for that era.
And he threw, I mean, Lynn Dickey did throw a lot of interceptions, but it was more of he would throw it up because it was either that or he was going to get crushed, right? Because he couldn't move. And it was just something that was part of it when he came from Houston, right? It's something we knew, but the guy was a pure talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to meet him several times, and this is before what was the event we used to have at Lambeau Field before family night, but they would come out and
the fan fest
and fan appreciation, and they were just in the parking lot, and you could go out there and meet the players and stuff. And Lynn Dickey was always just a cool dude, just very down to earth and very, very nice. He was very respectful too, no matter what, because everybody was at him. And I remember him in the David Whitehurst battle of who should we start, David Whitehurst or Lynn Dickey, and all those fun things. And either way, I mean, when Lynn Dickey was there, we had one of the top producing offenses in the NFL. And then that time our defense was like one of the most horrible defenses. John Anderson and his 7-time broken forearm, right? He was out there with his cast on going after it, but he was a great guy, but couldn't play the position. So I would say in my teenage years, early 80s was when it locked and loaded, like the Packer fan for life.
Yeah, so you're a young kid, you're watching the Packers. They're atrocious. You're probably hearing stories about Lombardi's Packers because you're kind of coming up in that era where that's still lingering a little bit more. Packers.
My dad would tell me real quick. My dad would tell me stories about the Ice Bowl, and he had to wear bread bags on his feet, and he was at the game. And I'm like, oh my god, I have to have these stories too.
Yeah,
and I don't.
I could not imagine being at the Ice Bowl. Not at all. I mean, we had a cold spell just come through not long ago, yesterday. It's like -20, and I'm just thinking, I couldn't imagine sitting at Lambeau Field and having it be colder than this.
I know.
Just freezing.
Yeah.
But so you're hearing, you know, the glory years of
Mhm.
Lombardi. You're watching this product that's less than ideal. You're seeing a lot of turnover in coaches and players coming and going, and then you see the spark of the '80s. Did you feel like, hey, the pack is back? I know we saw those stickers a lot from that era,
Yeah.
but did you feel like, oh man, the tide's turning and the Packers are going to go on this like championship run again, or was it just like it felt like lightning in a bottle at the time, and it was just like fun to have some excitement at the time? And
Well,
it's
we
a
went
long
it
time ago, so maybe
yeah.
you know.
It was fun at the times. There was really 2 times. It was that and the Cardiac Pack, right, of the late '80s,
80s.
with Don Mikowski and Lindy Infante. But I will say, you know, the playoff game, and again, nobody gives us credit to Lindicki. He still holds the record with 5 touchdowns in a playoff game, and he still holds it. Um, and that was incredible. I was at that game. That was fun. They tore the tore the goalpost down. It was the first time I ever seen this. And I'm like, it's just a playoff game. Why are we tearing down the goalpost? It's not the Super Bowl. But again, it's Green Bay, right? Because at that
Yeah.
time it was like, damn, we won something. Um, and then, you know, after that, it was disappointment because the next year after that playoff was horrible. I think we went, like, if I remember correctly, I want to say we went like 6-8, whatever it was when we had 14 games.
Mhm.
It was a bad year. Um, and you know, then we would come back, and then we had the win over the Washington Redskins, aka Commanders, on Monday Night Football. I was at that game, and that was an incredible blast.
Really?
That's still a great memory. Yeah.
I
Um,
mean,
my
that's not the highest scoring Monday Night Football any longer. I think it
no,
was just upset not long ago.
yeah, I think the Rams and somebody beat that, right? But yeah, I was at that game. And all that I remember vividly from that game outside of the game itself was somebody on the Howard Water Tower painted "Go Home Howard" because Howard Cosell was coming to Lambeau, and it was like a big deal. And I'm like, what? I remember that, like, "Go Home Howard." It was painted. It happened. Um, so that was crazy. But that
Well,
was an
that was a big
incredible
deal
game.
because Washington was the, Super Bowl
Yeah.
champions, and,
Yep.
I do love the fact that Mark Murphy was the starting safety on that team, and
Oh
now
yeah.
he's the president of the Packers, which would
Yeah.
be interesting to hear his perspective on it all.
Oh, and it's true because I actually had a chance to chat with him offside of because of work. But I said to him, I said, what was it like to get torched by Paul Kaufman for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns? And he looked at me, he goes, how do you know that to T? I said, because Paul Kaufman is one of the greatest tight ends in Packer history. He doesn't get enough play at that. But I
I would
said, but
agree.
he ate you alive that night. And he just looks at me kind of cockeyed, like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I was there. I watched it. And he looks at me. I said, but you're doing a good job as president. Good job.
Yeah, you can't argue stats here, Mark.
Nope.
That is,
Nope.
100% accurate. So there were some fun moments sprinkled
Oh
in,
my God. Yeah.
but there's also a lot of,
But it
just
wasn't, I will say, it's not like it is today. And when I say that, it feels more manufactured of it's a must and all those things because we took joy in a game. I remember in the '89 season when Don Mikowski went to San Francisco and we beat the 49ers 17-14. I was floored. That was my Super Bowl. So I kind of get when Chicago is thrilled with their horrible season and they got to beat us,
Mhm.
right? So we're them now, right? And but at the end of the day, um, I don't want to say the word I want to use is genuine or authenticity or the feel. It wasn't something you know you alluded to earlier, right? Is people being all stressed out over the top, and it was enjoy the sport, man. It you know it's something you get to do, and we're the smallest NFL city in America, and we should be proud of that. And we're the 13-time world champions. There's nobody better than us historically ever.
Mhm. Do you
Put
think
that into perspective.
do you think social media's made that, worse, or do you think it got worse before that?
No, I don't think social. I think well, no, I mean, I think social media has made it worse
Mhm.
because again, I think it creates this level of everybody can say whatever they want without repercussion, right?
Mhm.
And and it comes down to there's fun ribbing, right? So there's Bear fans. I have Bear fans that I love. I mean, friends of mine that are dear to me, and we have fun. We poke each other, and we're great. right? It doesn't turn into, I'm going to beat you up outside, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't turn into this rage. We have fun with it. And it doesn't have to be as visceral as it is today. And it sucks, right? It sucks that we lost to the Eagles, and I wasn't happy with it, but I had a steak after that, and life was pretty good, right? I can't sit there and be drowning my tears in it. And it again, I mean, look around. I'm not a fake fan by any means, right?
Right.
I have it going on, but it's it's disappointing that they're not playing, but it's not life altering.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this new life altering kind of behavior of, I don't know. It's just a lot of pressure. I also think the inclusion of gambling and DraftKings and all that jazz has also kind of melted it away a little bit, and it creates the Kansas City rift, right? And the referees. And when you see these things, it's, why is that? I think it creates a lot of different things, but that comes with the money and time. It was interesting because when my dad gave up his season tickets to us, his big thing was Plan B free agency. And he said, it's a business now, son. It's not a sport. And I'm not going to go watch a business. And that was in
Interesting.
82, right? The strike season. So,
Interesting. So he kind of saw the writing on the wall of how it was
yeah.
changing.
Yeah, and I mean he's passed for some time, but he said that though. He said it's a business now. I don't go that. And he got to watch Arnie Herber, Don
Mhm.
Hudson, and he would tell me the stories about over at East Side at City Stadium and the craziness there. And he goes, and they would punch him in the mouth, and they wouldn't get up, and they punch him again. That was football, son. That's how you tell it to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Dad, that's great.
I mean,
Um,
he's not wrong. You
nope,
watch some of the stuff, and I understand a lot of a lot of fans get upset about that of like the loyalty's gone in sports, and frankly, I don't necessarily blame players because you got to take care of yourself too, and take care of your family and your finances.
yeah,
But it isn't a loyalty first business anymore or
no,
game. It is there's no loyalty from the team's perspective. There's no loyalty from the player's perspective. It's
no,
a business. You take care of yourself. So it is interesting to think of it from that perspective of
yeah,
82 kind of splitting it and changing that dynamic slowly.
and it did, but at the end of the day, I'm still a Packer fan, right? I
Oh, for
don't
sure.
I don't freak out at the players who leave, like even when Devontae left. I'm sure there was a business and everybody wants to either make it into more than it is or less than it is or what happened in behind closed doors. At the end of the day, Devontae decided to go to the Raiders and Packers let him go.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the story, right? And for us to allude or say more to it, right, is always it melts the truth step by step as you go through it, right? So you don't know what the actuality is of when these things happen, but it is a business, right? It's not about we don't want to keep Devontae or we don't want to keep Aaron, but at some point we have to make a decision financially because that's the situation you're in.
So you live through these eras. You have the cardiac pack of 89.
God, that
They
was great. That was
you
fun.
you mentioned the instant replay game and you were at that game.
Yep. Lit up a little bit. I fell down like 4 steps when they said it because everybody jumped up when it said after further review, and I was like, ah! And then we knew it, right? And Sterling Sharp was such a blast to watch live. If you never got to see Sterling live, it was something. Man, you
Just
could just see that guy run his routes. He was just incredible.
has there been a receiver since Sterling that has reminded you of him? Because I was admittedly I was too young. I was born in 1989, so
Yeah,
um, by the time I was old enough and started watching football, Sterling had already exited the NFL. I've
I
seen
would say
highlights, I've seen games where he, whatever, but I've never got to see him in person. So was there anyone that like you watch and you're like, oh man, this guy has flashes. Obviously he's not the same level, but this guy
yeah,
has flashes.
I would say Devontae was there year 3, right? Year 3 or 4 where he really came out. Because he became strong enough, right? Because Sterling had this I remember I bought at Penny's, right, when he set the record the first time for 108 catches, right, for the year. That was the NFL record. And I went to Penny's down at the Port Plaza Mall when it was still there to get the shirt. And I was all excited and I got the shirt. And then he broke the record the next year with 112. And I'm like, I'm not buying another shirt. If he can keep doing this, I'm done buying the shirt. It's a shirt deal. But it was incredible to watch him because he was so good in the intermediate routes or the out routes, right? Where he could push his defender off pretty damn quick. I mean, he would run out there and pull back, and there's no way they're keeping up with him. And it was a pretty, great routes for him, and especially helped Don Mikowski and Favre over the days. But to watch him, I mean, the epitome, I would say, of watching like Sharp and then looking at what Devontae did. And again, I would not put Devontae over Sharp, and I don't want to disrespect Devontae because again, he's in a different era than Sharp was even in, where you could get grabbed and you could get handled. But my favorite thing is the Detroit game, right? The playoff game where you've seen him go down, right? And you see Sharp standing there, and then Favre just throws that rocket, and you're like, he just stood there, and you could see in his eyes, like, how did this get here? He's just holding it, like, what just happened? But the fact that he got that open, it speaks everything about Sharp because he didn't take no gruff from nobody. I have a couple things autographed from him. I got to meet him in person. He's not aloof and as weird as some people used to say he is. He's just a really quiet spoken guy, and power to him, right? Because throughout these years, you've never heard him trash. You never heard him yell, and the guy should be in the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Big time.
He set the record twice for receptions, and it's a travesty that it's taken this long. That's the Pro Football Hall of Fame needs to look at. But he's always been a gentleman. He was always, first class. And that's something that's been really important to me over the years. The players like a Donald Driver, players like Sterling Sharp, Don Mikowski even was, just a really good dude. And Favre was Favre, right? And I got to meet him once, and he was great, right? But you would hear the stories, and they were true. Like if you went to downtown Green Bay on a Saturday night for a home game, you're bound to run into him and his entourage.
That's a different era.
Offensive lineman. It was a different era.
Yeah.
But he was incredible to watch too. It's for me, those players, but it goes back to Lynn Dickey, it goes back to James Lofton, it goes back to John Jefferson, where, my heart still lies of, I would just, I think it was because of the childhood love and, the passion, and I would cut out newspaper stuff and hang it on my walls, and I'd be all like, yeah, this is great. And I had a picture, and God forbid, I cannot find it for the life of me, but Ted Hendricks was going to sack Lynn Dickey, and he missed him. And there was a picture on the Green Bay Press Gazette of him being vertical behind Lynn Dickey.
Wow.
Ted Hendricks vertical behind Lynn Dickey, and missed the sack, and they showed Lynn Dickey throwing the ball, and he did. He threw a touchdown pass, but it was insane. Those are the kinds of things, right, that were magical to me as a kid. And maybe it's because, it's just like anything with Christmas and all this other stuff. My kids are all grown now, right? Where it seems like there's a magic gone from my kid years through my teenage years, where and then you start noticing the business more and more of football, and I can enjoy it a lot better now. I wouldn't say it so much for my wife. Interestingly enough, she didn't used to be that big into football. We had to move to Illinois for 3 years, and she had to deal with Bear fan. And I kid you not, she is like I have to calm her down, like during the Packer games. Like, it's over, we're gonna lose. I'm like, relax. It's only one play. Check it out. We'll be fine. It's like, damn it. So she gets all fired up like that. But I used to be like that, but it was like that waiting for the Super Bowl 31 to come.
Yeah.
Right. And once Super Bowl 31 came, right, I kind of took a breath. Interestingly enough, I was sharing with you, I met Ron Wolf at the practice field in 1991. And he had just arrived, right? And Favre hadn't arrived yet and stuff. And I said, I just had a moment with him. And I was a young adult then at that point, right? How old was I? 66. So I was 18. I was like, 23, 24, 20, I think it's like 25. Anyways, I just said, Ron, I think this, this is the best I've felt about the Packers in my entire lifetime. It's really, really going well. And he goes, it's going to continue to go well. And he goes, you ain't seen nothing yet. So he told me. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And he sold that out. I'm still pissed about Super Bowl 32. I still think we should have had that game. There's a lot of call about the referees and everything else, but I still say Favre threw a very errant pass because Robert Brooks was open by like 10 yards and he threw it to Chamorro, and I have no idea to this day why he did not see Brooks wide open. But look at me, I'm getting all detailed now, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Should have been back to back.
Hey, it's Ben. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to draw the giveaway winner from last week's episode. So let's just draw the winner quick. We're going to draw the winner and the prize here real quick. Before I do, I want to say thank you to Nicolay Law for making these possible all year long. Without them, I certainly wouldn't be able to do this podcast, and I wouldn't be able to do these giveaways. So a huge thank you to Nicolay Law. If you are injured, get Nicolay. So let's draw today's winner. Thank you to everyone who watched the first episode. Thank you to everyone who entered. All right, let's see what we got here. Today's winner, Kirby. You finally got one, man. Kirby went our whole live show without winning one, and we finally got it today. Congratulations, Kirby. Let's see what you won. And Kirby got himself a John Kuhn signed 8x10. So congratulations, Kirby. Thank you to everyone who entered. Like I said, we're going to be doing these all season long, thanks to Nicolay Law. So be on the lookout for the Nicolay Word of the Week so you can enter in this week's giveaway. Good luck to everyone going forward, and let's get back to Eric. So you meet Ron Wolf. You have this nice moment. He says the best is yet to come. Now, you've been going to every game, or you were at that time going to every game. I know you have season tickets. So were you at the game when Mikowski ended up going down?
The Cincinnati game, yeah.
Yeah, you were?
Correct.
So then Favre comes in. He has this incredible finish.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like in Green Bay, if you remember at that time? And obviously, this is a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But
you make me feel old. It is a lifetime ago, but yeah. So I will say, the feeling was change. I just went, oh, yeah, this is legitimizing, Kittrick Taylor, the pass, right? But here's the deal, I always say that his first pass was to himself. Remember that? It got deflected and he caught it. But it felt different, Ben. And here's what I say: it felt like we have a talent, Now, mind you, I also had the mindset of Don Mikowski and Lynn Dickey and all these other things. So I wasn't quite sold at that point yet, but you could feel it in the air. There was a change. There was a change coming. And the neat thing is you could see it build from there. You could see it. It wasn't perfect, right? And we didn't go to the playoffs that year, I don't believe, in 91, right? Was it 92?
92, yeah, he came in.
Yeah. We didn't go to the playoffs that year, but the next year we did. And that was that was the Detroit game. And then 93, we had the Detroit game where we held Barry Sanders to 16 carries for 22 carries, was it, for negative 16 yards? Whatever it was, we beat up on him. And then, then you could see the build and grow. And then Dallas was in our way. And then that was still something that was painful when we won the Super Bowl that year because you didn't play Dallas. Well, Dallas lost to Carolina. Not our fault.
Right.
Show up. And everyone goes, you didn't play Dallas. It doesn't matter because those were painful games. The Dallas games with Favre, over the years, it was like, God, just get over the hump, just beat them. And then what's his name? Jason Garrett beat us. And I'm like, oh my God, Jason Garrett just beat us. How are we going to ever beat Dallas? But it turned out to be that now Dallas is on, dare I say, the feeling I had from the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, right? So Dallas is on that run now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But being a Packer fan is fun, first and foremost. And if it's not fun for you, If you don't love it, right? If it's something that stresses you out and pisses you off, and it's okay to be pissed off on a loss, it's okay to be angry when they lose. But I'm saying if it just generally, bends you the wrong way, you need to check yourself. And some people will say that doesn't mean you're a fan. It does mean I'm a fan. But listen, my dad said this to me a long time ago. He said, "Do you think those players are standing over there going, geez, I don't know if I can play today. It looks like Eric had a bad day at work, so I'm gonna slow down and not do well." And you gotta put things in perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, we want them to win. And the only reason we want them to win, so we can look at Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota and go take that. Right. And that's what we wanted to. It's not even the fact that we want to say we are number one. We want to look at our competitors and go, we beat you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing of fandom. But when you get past that and realize, and I have fun at Bear fans' expense, they deserve it. They're going to do it again this year. They already did it with Ben Johnson, right? We're going to beat them. You're already opening the door for us, and we're going to hear all about it. And then spring training is going to come, and then summer, and then training camp's going to come, and we're going to go through all this. And Ben Johnson's going to have a Super Bowl team ready, and then by week 4 of the NFL season, the Bears will be like, oh, there's turmoil. And then we'll go, hey, there you go, Bear fan, because you can't cut the head off the snake until the head of the snake is off, and that's McCaskey's. And until they're gone, I can't trust anything they put on the field or anybody they hire. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
they have proven me time and time again.
Yeah, they do seem like they're, I don't know. They seem like they have, I don't know if it's just short, if they're too impatient on everything, but they seem like they just turn around and expect things way too quickly out of everything. And I think that's the beauty about being a Packers fan and not having that owner is there's not that. I mean, how many owners in the NFL would allow the team to draft a quarterback to sit for 3 years?
Yeah, nobody.
And the Packers are in that realm because we don't have an owner yelling at them of like, no, you need to take this guy now.
Yep.
You just let everyone do their job and expect that results. You're from Green Bay, and I know most people who are in this area despise the Bears the most out of anyone in our division. Is that the case for you as well?
No, I don't despise the Bears the most. I hate Viking fan.
Okay.
Viking fan is the worst. And here's why. They've never won anything. Okay, hold on a second. They've never won anything. Somebody will say, well, they won the NFC championship. Great. Then give us 2 more championships because that's what we did too. But we just count the Super Bowl as the championship. We don't double up because the Vikings saying, well, we won the NFC in 1971. Well, good for you. Yeah, we did it before that. Viking fan hasn't won anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing, I don't know. I've been to way too many Viking games to say this, and we go to Minnesota a lot. It's a great state to go visit. I'm not bagging on it, but somehow Viking fan doesn't show up till week 6 or 7 when they know they're on a roll. And then they want to be big fans. Oh, I'm a fan all my life. Okay, great. Can you tell me who the starting quarterback was in 1975? No? Okay, then. All right. Good for you. You know who Ahmad Rashad is? No? Okay. And just checking. Bud Grant, ever heard of him? And they just seem kind of, because the Packers, even though in horrible years, and yes, the stadium was half full all the time, but it was still sold out.
Mm-hmm.
The tickets were all sold. But Viking fan hasn't won anything, but they act like, here's the other part of the Skol thing. I had some Viking fans jumping on me because I did a prediction, as I do my predictions every week. You see them, Ben. And they said, well, Skol, we beat you, Skol. And I'm like, you realize Skol started in 2016 with the launch of us in the US Bank Stadium, and you took it from a European football team?
Right.
It's from your marketing team. No, it's centuries old. You don't understand. No, I do understand what Skol means. I'm just telling you, your team, your marketing department of the Minnesota Vikings implored a European football team to use that to apply in their new stadium. And you act like this has been some sort of lifelong cheer.
Yeah, rich tradition.
Yeah, it's not.
And they do have some good, solid years of history. Now they didn't win championships. They're the Purple People Eaters, and they had some really solid things that you could really lean on as a franchise. And instead they choose to go that route.
I hated them in the 70s. They were we could not beat them. And Bud Grant was a great coach. And, Chuck Foreman
Fran
and
Tarkenton.
Fran
Yeah.
Tarkenton and what's his face after Fran, number 9, Kramer. I
Yep.
want to say not
I think
Eric
you're. I think
Kramer, that was Detroit.
no.
Tommy Kramer.
Tommy Kramer.
Tommy Kramer was a big deal there, and they were tough to beat, and they weren't going skull. They were just like, we're going to kick your ass,
Yeah.
okay, and get it. But they've never won anything. Just act like you've never won anything. I don't get caught up in the back and forth. Like even when Viking fan was doing this, so I'm giving you that dialogue, but in my chat, I'd be like, "Thanks for the feedback, I appreciate it."
Yeah.
And that makes people angrier. Like, you're right, we lost. And they're like, "Oh gosh," they want to get you all fired up. But it's not worth that much, right? And you got to have fun with it. Again, that's the biggest thing about being a Packer fan is it's fun. Every Sunday, I go to tailgates. I go over to Tom Burns, at the Green Bay house. I go to Liddy Liberty. I go see friends. I go hang out for a little bit, and I come home, and I'm here with my wife every game. Make myself a Bloody Mary, right? And I get ready for the game, and it's game on.
Heck yeah.
And it's fun. And the day it's not fun, I'm going to stop watching it. And
I think that's a good motto.
it's the way it is. But you got to remember is life is too short to get fired up about millionaires not playing well. And when I say that, it's not meant in malice or a crass statement. It's, like watching a movie and, oh my God, Tom Cruise didn't do good at Mission Impossible 8, right? And it is what it is.
Yeah.
And we are the Green Bay Packers. I am a Green Bay Packer. I'm a owner, right? I have all that going on. And it's important to me that they do well, but it's also healthy for me not to let it control my life.
I always say if I have no say in what happens, if I have no control in anything, whether they win or lose, I'm just going to enjoy it for entertainment that it is. I'm not going to lose sleep if they lose. I mean, that's easier said than done. I do get frustrated. I get upset after a loss, but I don't let it ruin my week. I can't control it. I enjoy the games. When it's done, it's done. And I go on about my life. And
I have WTF moments. Absolutely.
Yeah,
like, what just happened?
As a fan, you have to. I mean, no matter,
you do, right?
No
so I don't want to make it sound like I'm sprinkling sugar all over everybody. Yeah. Oh, it's all good. We're losing. It's great. Yeah. No, I'm a fan.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
upset, but
this visceral, this hate, this division, this blah 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 on social media, right? And to your point, I think that's what fuels stupidity. And it's okay. It's okay if you're having fun with it, right? It's I don't know if you look at the top of my Instagram, I did a little video where so I told you I lived in Illinois for a little bit, but my wife and I were driving in to meet some friends, and I was right at the border of Illinois, and I had I don't know if you know Clay and Colt, right? From they had the Fit Patrol, and I had the shirt on. So if you ever look at it, you can see me. And I get out and I made my wife film it, and I spit at the state sign, and I said, "I'm just doing my part." And I had the Fit Patrol sign on, and the comments that people put in there, I'm like, "Oh my God, these people don't care. They hate me." The one guy's like, "You're gonna rot in a cell, and I'm gonna get you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, fella, I was just drinking a Pabst, having fun."
So as you think about, you've been to a lot of games over the years. What is your favorite game you've been to, or your most memorable that you can like reflect on for you?
Well, I don't know if it's one or two, right? Because you got to remember the journey of Super Bowl 31, but the Mud Bowl against San Francisco, coldest game I've ever been to, and the temperatures have been a lot colder at Packer games, but that rain and wind, by like the end of the first quarter, everybody was soaked, and I was just soaked to the bone, and I never had my teeth chatter so hard.
Ooh.
And watching the Packers just annihilate the 49ers at the same time was enjoyable. And I just remember Desmond Howard getting booed at halftime because he changed his pants. He came out and his pants were new, and we're like, "What is going on?" Everybody started booing him because he came out with fresh pants on.
Well, then he missed the opening kickoff, remember?
Yeah, because of his pants. But then the Carolina game was it was very, very memorable to me, because it was the end of a journey, right? I got to see the Packers go to a Super Bowl, and being in the stadium at the time to watch it all go down, to see it, was the end of a life invested journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm a lot more at ease, right? If you would have interviewed me, uh, say in 1996 in September, how you feeling, Eric? I'd probably be like, give me a piece of coal, I'll give you a diamond in a minute. All right, we better win the Super Bowl. And I was waiting all my life for that, but
Yeah.
it was kind of like almost a heave of relief once they won.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got it, right? I got my dad's piece of the pie, and I got my own, because he would tell the stories about all that stuff, from the Packers championships over the years. So, yeah, it would probably be the Carolina game. Outside of the championship thing, though, I will say probably my most, was the instant replay game. That was a blast.
Hey, it's me again. I wanted to interrupt. This week's Nicolay word of the week is billboard, like what you see when you're driving down the highway. Nicolay Law is very well known for their billboards in the area, so make sure you find that giveaway form link in either the comments below or the show notes, and enter the giveaway there with the term billboard in the Nicolay phrase of the week. Once again, huge thank you to Nicolay Law for making these giveaways possible all year long. And yeah, let's get back to Eric. I mean, when you look at some of the most iconic games the Packers have had over the years, instant replay game kind of always comes to mind, because that was, I felt like, the turning point for that franchise. Mikowski really had a spark that the team hadn't seen since the early 80s.
Yep.
That's really cool. I'm curious, because you got to go to so many games. Do you still go to games occasionally?
Nope.
When did you stop going? Like
2004, actually.
Okay.
I stopped going in 2000, but I went to a game in 2004. I was in a skybox, so it doesn't really count. It's in a living room. So yeah, but
well, where I'm going with this is, now when you go to some games, you will depending on where you're sitting, depending on the game, people will yell at you to sit down. People will yell at you, like, which that's an argument for a different day. But in the 90s, was that atmosphere, as that team is building towards this championship, did you have that then in Lambeau Field, or were fans just like, hey, we're going to be rowdy and we're going to be part of this?
No, we were rowdy and part of it, and actually everybody knew everybody in the section. And I think there's been a change, right, from generation, but I knew everybody in my section, my dad's and uncle's seats, right? We knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, how you doing, Daryl and Mary? How you doing, Lester? Right? We came up, we knew, hanging out, and you were hanging out around people, and some people were loud, some people were intense, right? Some people were whatever. I was one of the intense, loud ones, right? And I will say, I never saw that. I never saw this, that kind of behavior. And it's also because prices. I don't even want to tell you the prices of tickets back then. You don't even want to know. Yeah. But it's kind of like, as you go through the years, people ask me, why don't you go to the games now? I said, life's too old to wait, a half hour to take a pee, right? I'm just not waiting a half hour. And you're like, well, half hour, but the bathrooms are better. Yes. But, for people who don't know, I have a gimpy leg. I run around on one leg, but it's, I have a gimpy leg, but it's you get down there and then you got to go to the bathroom, and then you hear this cheering and you're trying to see the TV and you're like, what just happened? And there's nothing worse, right? When I'm sorry, as a fan now, I have a seat, and, my bathroom is 4 steps away and my beer is 6 steps away. And I think life is good.
And it doesn't cost you like $11 per beer. You can just,
no. And I enjoy it, right? And good for those people who want to be at the games. And I'm not here to say you shouldn't be at the games and all that. It's just for me.
Yeah.
But if you sat through the 70s
and you paid
and 80s,
your dues, you went to games for over 20 years straight. Just
and not good games, by the way.
Yeah.
And you had to sit through them, and I would stay to the end. They're gonna come back, and it never happened. But it's. And again, Lambeau is iconic. I love to go to Lambeau. I love to just hang out in the atrium, and my wife and I'll go over there, and I go to the pro shop and buy too much stuff sometimes. And,
That's easy
I'm
to
a
do.
part of Green Bay. I'm a stockholder and the whole 9 yards. I go to the stock meeting every year just to say I was there and cast my votes. But it's it's a special feeling to be a Green Bay Packer fan in the city of Green Bay and being an owner in the whole 9 yards.
Mhm.
Doesn't change anything, right? Whether you go to the games or not go to the games, it's the tailgates, it's the memories, the things you always take with you that you're gonna, get the most out of. Because there was so much over the years when you think of the transition from the 80s to the 90s, right? And where football went after the 2000s, right? And as you see this incorporation, right, of the DraftKings, and I say all these things happening, it's just become so. Can you imagine if they had the instant replay game now?
Right.
Like, it would be down to this blade of grass was right here, and it looks like it could be. Right. Like, and man, mind you, the Philadelphia Eagle game, we know Keyshawn Johnson had that ball in his, or Keyshawn Nixon had that ball in his hand.
Yeah.
We know that. And it looks like he has possession. Oh, well, overturn it. I mean, there would be pandemonium back then. Like, are you serious? We just watched that. He has the ball. The refs would be
Yeah.
running for their lives.
It
Now it's
it
just, yeah,
it
it's
is
normal.
interesting to see the change, and especially from your perspective because you got to witness
Mm.
it firsthand.
Yep.
I certainly couldn't imagine that. It'll be interesting to see where in another 30 years where this game
Yep.
is at. Um,
And
I
I
do
hope it's
agree
not
with you
changed
though.
much. I hope it's not changed much because
I hope
I
not
don't
too.
think you can tweak it any harder than it is right now.
I
My
think we're going
two
to see a
cents.
lot more international games, which I think is going
Yeah.
to, obviously irritate a lot of people because as this thing continues to grow, and it's a business, like you
Yep.
said, like your dad said, um, businesses want to make more money each and every year,
Yep.
and it's either by increasing prices or expanding your markets. So it is gonna the product's always gonna be changing. I do agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's very odd how in the last 5 years now, if you watch pre-games, it's not really about football anymore. It's about DraftKings and
Yeah.
what's your parlay lock, what's your whatever, and it does open the door for a lot of scrutiny on calls and scrutiny on the game itself,
Yep.
which is interesting that they allowed it to go to that place. But
Yeah.
they got to
It,
make their money, I guess.
it's interesting. The pregame we used to have was Brent Musburger and Jimmy the Greek. And and they would have those little slide boards and it would come up who's better at this position, right? Because they would have it always position on position. The Packers are better than the Eagles at quarterback. So they would slide it out, right? And you're like, oh, okay. Right. And you'd watch it and it'd be emotionally attached to, I don't agree with that. And that'd be about it. Right. And then we'd go through these things and then we'd do the highlights. And it was always great to end up on the Monday night football highlights from the previous day. Like if you had a good win, and that didn't happen very often for the Packers, but I was always excited when we're like, we're going to be on the Monday night football halftime wins.
Yeah.
And you would wait for it. But and it's not dissing what it is today. It's just evolved to what it is today. And it's not that I don't like it any better or any worse.
Yep.
It's still entertaining to me. I
Yeah.
still enjoy it. I still get a lot out of it.
Mhm.
The refs thing, I think they need to get control of that because I watched that Kansas City game and I had no bearing interest in either side, but I will tell you that Patrick Mahomes stuff is a little off, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't care what anybody says. I'm like, dude, because then I watched Lamar Jackson get thrown almost into the bleachers against the Bills, and there was no flag. And I'm like, what is happening? Why is Lamar Jackson thrown
I
around like that?
had the same exact thoughts watching
Yeah.
back-to-back games on that. Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
how did that happen? So, but it's, you know, for me, for Green Bay, right? We are the little engine that could, and now we are the little engine that's better than everybody else. We're no longer the little engine. We are the engine. And that was the nice transformation I got to see throughout the years, right? Because yes, they were the dynasty in the 60s and we would hear all about it, but it wasn't like this looming thing when I was younger, right? Because it was looming for me, but it wasn't like in your face all the time.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like we suck. And you're like, oh my God, we suck. Right. And he would just go into it. And especially in the 80s when the Bears were dominating us, Not so much the Lions, right? But the Bears, and you're like, and damn it, this sucks. And then the 90s came, and we'll watch that transformation, and Ron Wolf came in. Now, Mike Sherman, not a big fan. I'm just telling you. Ray Rhodes, Mike Sherman was not a good run. But, that was for me just to watch the evolution of what it is today.
Mhm.
But now, when people say anything to me, I can look at them and say, we're the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers. We have more wins, more playoff wins. We have more anything than any other NFL team in America. Check that before you say anything else. And until you can check that, just remember where you sit in my pedestal, right? Even Patriots fan, well, how many Super Bowls? Just because it changed its name, right? It used to be a couch and now it's a sofa, doesn't change the outcome. It was a championship, okay? And then what's his face's daughter called it a Super Bowl, right? And then now we have the Super Bowl. It doesn't change. It's a championship. It's the NFL championship. It just got a name change. And because the two leagues merged, it still doesn't change anything. Everybody goes, well, how many Super Bowls? You can't say that, or else you can tell me that your grandparents were irrelevant. Okay, all right. And if you tell me that, I'll agree with your history books. That's the thing that burns my bridges to this day. Well, how many Super Bowls? What does it matter? We have 13 championships. Wow, you won it back. Well, it doesn't matter. You're going to tell me the World Series didn't matter in the 30s and 40s? You're going to tell me that? No? Okay, then be quiet and take it, because it's history. And you can't take away history.
That's a good argument. As we're looking at your background, obviously you showed me a tour of your awesome Packers man cave there.
Yeah.
Out
the
of all
dive
items,
cave.
the
I'm going to
dive
name it
cave.
this year. The dive cave of Green Bay, I think. That's what I want to do.
I like that.
It kind of looks like a dive bar, right? So
it does kind of look like a dive bar. So in the dive cave of Green Bay, you have a lot of items here. Out of all the things you have, what's your favorite piece?
It's my Bart Starr piece right behind me, right here. That's signed by Bart. That's his jersey up there. That's an original throwback jersey. So you see it here.
You told me how you got that picture beforehand. So do you want to share what happened? How are you able to? How did you get Bart Starr's autograph?
Well, I was a restaurant manager many years ago at a chain called Perkins. Their pancakes and bacon, all that jazz.
Great place.
And Bart and Sherry came in, and back in those days, we had an open kitchen you could see out there. And I was all excited. I had, the Superman crush, and I was a little kid back then. And I'm like, Bart and Sherry Starr are here. And I told the server, I said, I'm taking care of their bill. Just let me take care of it. And it was really busy. It was a Friday afternoon or a Friday lunchtime. And then it got really busy. And then all of a sudden, server turns around because somebody's here to see you. And I turn around and it's Bart Starr standing there. He goes, young man, I'm going to need your address. Can you write it down for me? He goes, nobody buys my lunch.
Middle of lunch rush. And you're just like, oh God.
Oh my God. And he goes, nobody's going to buy my lunch and I'm not going to reciprocate that for him. So I wrote it down, and 4 weeks later it popped up in my mail, and I'm like, holy man, he followed through. I didn't know if he was going to send it or not. Right. But, and then I got to meet him also many years ago at the Lombardi Steakhouse in Appleton. They had their first dinner. It was called Dinner with the Legends, or something with the Legends at Lombardi Steakhouse. And I got to sit at the table with him and Carol Dale and Paul Horning. So that was pretty cool too. So, and he remembered me.
How did you get that opportunity? Was it just
through work again? I was in a different restaurant chain then, and they said, hey, it was through the Miller, because we had Miller beer at our restaurant. So the Miller beer had this hook up, and they said, you want to go to this? And I'm like, okay, I'll go. Hell yeah, I'll go.
And he remembered you from your Perkins days.
Yeah. He goes, yeah, weren't you the young man at Perkins? Then he started telling me the story about the ice bowl. It's like this tabletop. It was like granite. Yeah. But Bud Starr was, if you look back, and they just put out a newer documentary that really talked about him and Sherry and everything they kind of endured. It was kind of, wild that they didn't even acknowledge they eloped, and they didn't acknowledge their marriage because of college and the military. All kinds of different things in there, right? But for me, Bart Starr was a gentleman. He was our head coach, and people would hate on him, and I would be very defendant of him. And he was a bad coach. I'm just going to say it was not good. But he was an incredible gentleman. And he was like royalty to me. Um, Bart Starr was the greatest gentleman that the NFL has ever seen. There's never going to be another Bart Starr. And you can say Tom Brady and all these people who were great. I get it, but they did not have the charisma, the class, and the outward humanitarian. Bart Starr was just an incredible dude, and there's never going to be another like him.
I would agree 110%. So as we're kind of wrapping this up, I know I've been I've been holding you up here for a while, but I have a list of hot questions that I'd like to ask people here.
Okay, hot
They're
question
just
away, pal.
yeah, they're just a
I
fun
should
little
get
list.
some. Should I get some wings?
Yeah, yeah, get some legendary wings.
Yep.
If you could sit down and have a conversation with any person associated with the Green Bay Packers, alive or dead, excluding Vince Lombardi, who would you choose and why?
Curly Lambeau.
Curly.
Yeah, because I know he met with George Calhoun and the whole thing, right? But what was the passion behind, getting into the league, and why he did the things he did in the beginning? And I know there's a lot to it, but I'm really, really interested because he was with us for 40 years, and I know he didn't have the greatest of exits from the Packers, but I'd be really interested on how that all looked more intricate and to hear the behind the scenes details of how that all went down. I know they met at the Stein and had a beer, right? And suddenly the Green Bay Packers were born, but I want to know more. Like, how did that happen, right? Where did you come up with this? Who talked to you about this? There has to be a story behind the story.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. I would love to know that. Now, I can add a second one though. Can I do that?
Yeah, it's your show, man. It's your episode. You can do whatever.
Mike Holmgren. And when he came to Green Bay and having an understanding of everything that was happening, because he really embraced the history of Green Bay, and all the coaches say that. Mike McCarthy said that and everything else, but I think Mike Holmgren is really an underrated coach in Packers history, and he doesn't get talked about enough. And I think he had a lot to bring. And I would ask him, the first question I would ask him is, what were you worried about the most in coming to Green Bay? Because
I think that's a great question.
I think it'd be really easy to say why you wanted to come to Green Bay, right? And Ron Wolf was here and things were going to happen. But, what worried you the most about coming to Green Bay? I would love to hear that.
That is a good question. I'll have to keep that in the back burner in case I ever run into him. So maybe I can get some answers. Speaking of people who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, that's another one in my opinion. It's a travesty that he's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Yep.
I know it's harder for coaches and personnel because they always say that there's no timeline of them being forced out of the NFL like a player, but still he should be in the Hall of Fame all day long. I love your two choices on that. Great answers there. So out of all the games that you've watched, whether in person or on TV, if you could watch any game again for the first time, having the same emotions or feelings you did as the first time you watched it, so you didn't know the outcome, you're just sitting down watching it fresh again for the first time, what would you choose?
The Monday night game against the Packers and the Redskins.
83.
83, yep. The highest scoring one. And the Mark Mosley missed field goal. Pow!
I mean, you were there. The atmosphere had to be electric.
It was insane.
Still,
people like Mike Mead were scoring touchdowns. People are like, "Who's that?"
They have that. I don't know if you have it, but that there's a DVD set of like the top 10 games of all time in Packer history. This came out, I want to say, right around 2008.
Yeah.
And that Monday night game was one of them for obvious reasons. That's an incredible game to still sit down, and I think it's on YouTube now. You can probably go watch it.
Good old Jerry Ellis, number 31 too. He had a game.
Yeah, not a boring game at all. There's no defense played by either side. So I like that answer as well. If you could attend any game in the history of the Green Bay Packers, and I'm going to exclude championships, even like the Ice Bowl, right? No Super Bowls, NFL championships, anything like that. Which game are you choosing?
Ooh.
And we'll say you're a young buck in this, so you're not having to deal with you're not having to deal with the long bathroom lines and stuff like that.
I would say go to San Francisco and watch Don Majkowski beat the 49ers 17-14.
I mean, I think that's a fair one, especially that cardiac pack, and I
Yeah.
Mikowski probably should have won MVP that year.
Yep.
I think he got snubbed because he wasn't the name
Yep.
Montana was. But dude, you're giving me some good ones here. I like
Oh,
this.
either that one or I will say the monsoon in Chicago too. I was there for that one.
The Halloween
Oh my
'94.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was great.
you were in that one. You were
Oh
there,
yeah,
huh?
watch
In
Robert Brooks
Chicago.
score the 100. Yeah, people don't realize it wasn't a monsoon in the beginning when Robert Brooks did that 99-yard touchdown. Was that the same one? No, that wasn't the same
I,
one.
don't- I don't I don't I don't know if that's the same one.
You know what
Which
I'm talking about, right? The 99-yard
I know
touchdown
the
in Chicago.
99 yard, but I don't know if that was the same. I don't
They
think that
beat
was
them
the same one because
34-14.
I think the Halloween one was they were in throwback uniforms. Because
Oh
I
yeah, okay.
remember, was it who was it? Was it Rutger that had the pumpkin on the back of his?
Yeah, Ken
I don't
Rutgers. Yeah,
I
number
don't remember who.
75 fella.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it was Rutgers that he
Yeah,
had the pumpkin on the back of it. But
yeah.
either
The
way,
monsoon game. It was raining, so maybe it wasn't that game. But yeah, the game before, well, it was the season before that. I think was the 99-yard touchdown. But the monsoon game when Favre just tore up the Bears was outstanding. So
I mean, anytime you can watch
yeah,
Favre tear up the Bears, I think that's a good one.
it's great, especially in Chicago. It's the outstandingness.
So I know you like to have a cold beer or two.
Or 6 or 8.
Yeah, or 6 or 8. So I don't know your drinking ability. I
Yeah.
asked Matt the same question. I know Matt can put down beers, but I know you like to have a beer or two. What is a player that you'd like to have a drinking contest with, or someone that you'd like to play drinking games with, or beer chugging games with? Who's someone that you feel like you could go toe to toe with?
Right now, I would like to take the young Tucker Kraft to the table.
I think he'd give anyone a run for their money.
I
Personally,
think I could take him though.
yeah.
I think I could. Yeah,
I think my
I'm
money's
from
on
Green
you.
Bay.
And
He's
you got the years of experience. You know,
yeah.
you've had a beer or two in your day.
Yeah. Go back and see and if you ever get a chance, go to my Instagram page, Beer Guys 911_Wisconsin. You'll see some thrashed beers.
There you
So yeah,
go.
that'll happen. But yeah, I don't drink them all in a row, but yeah. Yeah, I would like to do that. And if not him, Lynn Dickey, absolutely.
I think both would be great.
Yeah.
Final one for you. Let's say you were, obviously the Packers don't have like a traditional owner. We have numerous owners, yourself,
Yeah.
myself included. But let's say tomorrow you woke up and you had full control over the Packers like an owner would. What would be the first thing you would do as an owner to change the franchise? Something that you'd like to change, or something you'd like to do a little bit differently than they're doing now?
That is a very good question. I would say this. I would make Matt LaFleur turn over play calling duties to an offensive coordinator.
Interesting.
And I think Matt LaFleur could share all of his play calling with his offensive coordinator. And I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. But sometimes I think the entire game gets lost when he's doing play calling on offense and he's involved with that and not the whole package at times. At least it appears that way.
Yeah,
But I
and
would make him turn over play calling duties.
I could see that getting tough though. If you're it's no if you think about it, if you're like in the kitchen, right, and you're doing
Yep.
something and you're trying to just juggle too many tasks, it's
Yep.
easy to get bogged down on things and miss details.
Yeah.
So
And don't worry, I got it, right? You have how many kids you have, Ben?
I just have one. Yeah.
One? Okay, I remember one. So we have 4. And throughout the years of having children,
Hold
and
on.
they were
How
all in a row,
as
like,
as someone who has one kid, how the hell do you deal with 4 kids?
well, now they're all grown up, and my youngest is 20. But my point is, trying to balance all that is virtually impossible. And my wife is a saint, and she was great. I mean, she was, for the most part, a stay-at-home mom. And that's a job I didn't want. But it's all that is involved. You need 2 people doing it, right? As a parent, I think, and I don't want to get into the details and somebody going, "Oh my God, you don't think single mothers can handle it or a single father?" And that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at when you work together as a team,
Yeah.
you get a lot more taken care of, especially, we call it home team, right? When we got a home team this, we got a home team this, and we got to get this done home team. And that was our little saying, and how we get things done. And that takes both of us, contributing. And that's where with Matt LaFleur, sometimes his play calling is outstanding. And I'm like, that was a great play call. And sometimes I go, what just happened? Why did we call that? And the incident that happened in the Bear game, right, where Jeff Hafley said, well, that wasn't the play. Somebody should have been watching that and called a timeout and said, why are we set up like that? Fix it.
Yeah.
And that's not, I'm not in the point of looking back with regret. I'm just saying sometimes when you have the head coaches, being the offensive play callers, it can be distracting. Now they can be involved with it. They can absolutely have their head in it, but they should have somebody committed to it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't disagree on a lot of that. I think, it's tough to juggle a lot of things, and there's a lot of things going on in a very short window in the NFL play to
Yeah.
play, and I don't think that would hurt anything by any means. I'm still just mind blown to 4 kids sounds,
Yep. And
um
then I would also take one of the entries and turn it into my own.
Hey, if you're the owner, like,
Yep.
I mean,
I'm
that
good.
that has to be the best thing about being an owner of a
Yeah.
franchise is, like, you have your own personal suite, you have your own bathroom, your own space, you can
Yeah.
have
Do
access to
whatever.
everything, do whatever. Like, I'll never be
Every-
a billionaire, but if I ever were, I think owning a sports team would be, like, the greatest thing and the most fun thing that you
Every
can do.
every once in a while, if you want to have a good fun, is go up to the higher floors, like the fourth floor in the atrium, and then get out, and somebody stops you and you hold out your ID and go, "I'm an owner." Excuse me. Like, you can't get through here. I remember bringing a friend of mine from Chicago up to Lambeau. He'd never been there before, and I brought him into the atrium, and he goes, "This is just open?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And nobody graffitis it or trashes it?" I said, "No, this is Lambeau Field, fella." He goes, "How does this happen here?" I said, "It's ain't Chicago."
Yeah,
Yeah. They will police themselves. They don't even need the police to come in here. Somebody comes in here, does something in here. There's going to be people jumping on them. Like,
no
what are you
kidding.
doing? It's Lambeau Field. And he was mind blown. You can just walk in and hang out in the atrium. I said, yeah, that's just how it works here.
Well,
So,
it is odd during the off season because when you go in there and the atrium's just empty and you're
yeah.
just, like, in there and you see the employees, but the
The
atrium
draft
itself
clock is up now, though. The
that
draft
that
clock
is
is
true.
fun.
That is true. It's gonna be a zoo here for that. Are you
Yeah.
gonna go down to the draft?
I'm trying to talk my wife into night one. She's trying to leave for the time while it's happening. The only thing I'm concerned about is I'm not an angry driver, but when people drive who are not from here and they
Dude,
get in my way, especially on 172, I'm like, this is the third lane. Just get out of the way. And I know everybody says Wisconsin camps in that left lane. Not me. I get over in that left lane. We know how 172 works. I'm in the
yeah.
far left lane. You shouldn't be in there doing 40. Okay, get over to the right side.
It's
So,
gonna be a zoo here for that
oh
for
yeah,
sure. I don't know
absolutely.
logistically how that's gonna work. It's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, anything that you feel like we missed, about you, your stories, anything fun that you feel like
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a blast with the Packers. I have a blast with my Packer friends. I've gotten to know Matt as well. The Drew Cave, I know Drew pretty well now. Tom at the Green Bay House, and it's a community,
Mhm.
right? And Packer fans are a community, and no matter what, you can go into lot one, you can hang out, you can walk into everybody, and it's just you're a Packer fan. And even if you're not, I brought some friends from Chicago up, and I brought him over to Liddy Liberty, and I brought him over to the Green Bay House, and these guys were like, "Holy man, I can't believe how people are treating us." I said, "This is Green Bay, Wisconsin. We care not only about our Packers, but we care about the experience anybody gets here when they come to a game," and that's a true statement.
Yeah.
We want to be nice people. And yes, you're going to run into some jerks and everything, but I guarantee you, if you want to walk into the nicest stadium in the NFL, it's Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I'm proud of that because it's a
Mhm.
reflection of our community. It's a reflection of our fans. It's a reflection of who we are. And listen, I'd be the first person to just sit down and have a beer with you. I don't care if you're a Bear fan, a Lion fan, well, maybe a Viking fan. I'm going to have a couple of beers before I get there. I'll buy you one at Kroll's, but then you're going to buy me back. And maybe we'll get there. But at the end of the day, that's what this is about. And sometimes people lose sight of that. But I'm proud to be a Packer fan. I'm proud to live in Green Bay. I'm never going to leave. Yeah, people say get old like me, right? You want to move south? Nope, I just want to be here. I want to be here, and I want to be a part of it every year until the day I die. So I'll be here next year, and the Packers will go 14-3, and they'll win the Super Bowl again. That's going to be my prediction.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty confident. And mark my words, I believe Devontae Adams comes back.
I could see that as well. That would not surprise me. We'll see. That's some. I love the predictions. Yeah. Where can people find you if they're on Instagram? I know you're an
Yep,
Instagram
I'm
guy.
at sixvalues.el or as E. Ivan Larson. And on Beer Guys 911_Wisconsin. And I have a little beer gig over there where I just slam beers and drink a lot of them.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode with Eric. A huge thank you to Eric for taking the time to come on the show from his dive garage, which is the nickname for his Packer room. Absolutely loved hearing Eric's story. It was great getting an opportunity to talk with Eric and get to know him a bit more. So I can't thank him enough. Also, once again, thank you to Nicolay Law for making the show possible all year long. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do it at all. If you want to come on an episode of Tales from the Tundra, check out the show notes or the comment below for the form on how to submit your entry or your submission to come on the show. I look forward to reading those. And until next time, my name is Ben. Once again, thank you for watching Tales from the Tundra, and I will see you next week, same time, same place. And until then, go Pack Go.